Yeah. My name is Mike Bucci, and I want to thank Ministry and Council. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for being here. Zoom people are near and dear to my heart. And those of you that are on Zoom can't see that we have literal angels in the room with us. Look out the window and there's a sign that says angels. I'm not here to make a statement of my beliefs. I might have an experience today and then my beliefs would change. And so I'm going to be talking about the truth as I know it. And I will upfront admit that I don't know much. I'm comfortable with that. And this presentation will probably be full of contradictions, some of which are intentional. We are all manifestations of circumstances that brought us to this particular place and time. We're living, breathing miracles of light. And I'd like to invite you to join me in an exercise that helps me when I'm sitting in meeting and my mind starts to ping pong around wherever it on its own. I found myself in a park in the center of Washington, D.C. one day, and a Catholic named Richard Rohr was leading a group in this exercise using a psalm that's near and dear to Quakers, "Be still and know that I am God." So if my mind is being in its monkey state, I will breathe in and breathe out. And when I breathe out, I will say a part of that phrase from the Psalms, "Be still and know that I am God." Each time that I exhale, I will lose one of the words at the end. Generally, by the time I've finished, I'm gathered with all in worship. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still. Be. My particular circumstances began with my parents, both refugees from small town America, looking at their lives as high school graduation approached with nothing in front of them. So they decided to move out of their towns. My dad from Western Pennsylvania joined the Air Force, was assigned to a base in Casper, Wyoming, gets a pass, goes down to Denver for a dance. My mom from Western Minnesota looks at her life and decides to go to secretarial school in Denver, goes to a dance. Here I am. I was a product of a mixed marriage. My dad was Catholic, my mom was Methodist. And in order for their marriage to be recognized by the Catholic faith, they had to agree to raise me as a Catholic. So I went to Catholic school for the first 5 years of my life, and I learned lots of answers. This book has over 200 questions and answers. And in second grade, I won an Immaculate Conception Medal for answering 22 catechism questions in a row, including number 2. In case you were wondering, who is God? The answer's in here.
So bad.
I'm fond of Quakers. They are good at asking questions and wrestling with the answers.
Catholics have the answers.
When I am not here, I'm at the Augustana Lutheran Church in Washington, D.C. with my wife Judy, who some of you in here know. And I sing in that church choir. They have a piece in their service where it says pause for silence. And the pause is only the inhale part. So it's not, I love it, but it's not my spiritual home. But I have had two experiences with I've had many experiences, two on retreat with those that I'd like to share with you. One was, a group met for a weekend up at Gettysburg College, where's a Lutheran seminary. And, we were talking about the church service, and there was, I was feeling like I'd been around a while, and people knew me, I felt comfortable enough to raise my hand and say, you know, when we in the church service recite the Apostles' Creed, I spend so much time and energy trying to translate every single word so that it makes enough sense for me to be able to say it with conviction. And I was thinking, okay, they're gonna kick me out. And from the corner of the room, somebody said, well, what do you think we do? And I knew I was gonna be okay there. A few years later, they invited a Catholic priest to come and do a retreat with them on centering prayer. Imagine Catholics have mystics. I never knew that. And so Father Erico from the Keating Center out in Colorado came and invited them from the evening session after dinner until after breakfast to be in silence. And I remember one of the Lutherans saying the next day after silence was broken, you know, there's a lot of wasted words that we use. I like that. When adolescence hit and my understanding of what Catholics were preaching and what they were doing and the contradictions there, including the fact that according to my understanding, my mom was not going to go to heaven. She wasn't a Catholic. And that was very troubling, among other things. So when adolescence hit, I didn't want to have anything to do with religion. I didn't want to have anything to do with church. I didn't want to have anything to do with God. I was done with God. I'm grateful that God wasn't done with me. And that went on for quite a while until at age 26, two events happened in my life. One, the woman that I had married right out of college told me that she was leaving. And my mother was dying from cancer. So I was a mess. There was a huge hole in my life. My mom, through her process of dying, was supported by her faith. This is the lady that did not go to church with Dad and I, except for C&E, Christmas and Easter. So I was curious. I went to Washington Hospital Center to pick her up, not pick her up, she was dead, pick up her stuff. And I go into the room where she was, and there was Washington Hospital Center's near the Franciscan monastery. And so there was a brother sitting there who had visited with her. And I was surprised to see somebody in the empty tomb, the empty room. And he said, I just wanted to feel her presence one more time. And I missed out on that because I didn't have anything to do with anything that dealt with God. So God put a bunch of things in my place for the next 5 years that I could have chosen to pay attention to. And one of which was, I had heard about Quakers. They were not an organized religion. I found out differently over the last 40 years, but, and I was of draft age during the Vietnam War. I was not a conscientious objector, but I had, spent some time with some Quakers talking about that. And I was teaching elementary school, and part of the curriculum was local history, which is a passion of mine, you know, even to this day. So here is this local history place that has an unorganized religion, that talks about peace. And so I showed up one Sunday morning, and I've heard a lot of people use the phrase, it felt like coming home. I resonate with that. My image is more along the lines of an exercise we used to do with students in outdoor education, where we would gather a group of about 10 students to stand in a circle, shoulder and shoulder, and put their arms in the spotting position. And one person would volunteer to stand in the center of the circle, cross their arms, and lean back and be gently passed around the circle. That's what coming to Quaker meeting felt like. Being passed around the circle, being embraced in the loving arms of God. In 1979, I wouldn't have used those terms, but I gladly use those now. It seemed very different. I would sit in the back and I would leave before anybody could talk to me. I must have at some point signed the guest book, because I'm trying to downsize in my house, and I left some books and pamphlets in the back of the meeting house. They're still there. And one of them was a pamphlet on Quakers, and there was a note in there that Ed Eisenstein, yeah, he's over here. Ed Eisenstein found, that was written by Peggy Fogarty. And it said, you know, here's some pamphlets. If you have any questions, you know, here's my number. 7-digit number, by the way, 1981. So I'm grateful to get that back. Jack and Peggy were part of a group that Judy and I could attend, because she's going down to Lutheran church. I'm starting to attend the Quaker church a little more regularly. And on Sunday evenings, there was a Course of Miracles led by Barry Moreland. And at this point, I do want to talk about Judy, because she's a crucial part of my spiritual journey. She was the new 5th grade teacher down the hall. And in most schools, if you want access to the copier, you show up early. I don't know what it's like these days, but back during my time. So I was early and Judy was early. And so we would meet at the copy machine and talk. I became interested in her. She was kind of cute, but she had this deep faith. Those of you that know her know, maybe if I hung out with her, I would get some too. But she would say things like this world is not the only world. We can't see. We see through a glass darkly. And I equate that with this guy here, who is talking about sacred literature. The Little Prince is my Bible. And the Little Prince asked a lot of questions through his journey, wanting to find out. And the Little Prince left the pilot with this phrase: "It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye." I thought Judy was talking about the fairy kingdom and King Arthur and Lord of the Rings. She was talking about something else. She is a lifelong Lutheran. She was born in Augustana Lutheran Church. It is high church. It is as close to Catholicism as possible. It was a bit of a challenge for me to go down there and be a part of that in the beginning. But she encouraged me to get more involved in Sandy Spring, so I'd show up more often. She encouraged me to get outdoors more. I would constantly express, you know, I've never been backpacking, so you ought to go backpacking. I mean, it's real simple, right? You want something, you go do it. She has this way of, and so I signed up for a national outdoor leadership course in the Bighorn Mountains of Wyoming. Joe and Nancy McIntyre's territory, 10 Sleep Creek, and spent 3 weeks in the mountain, never been backpacking. I chose to use that time as a voyage of discovery. Remember, I rejected things in adolescence. One of those things was traveling to visit my mom's family. After age 12, I never went out to Western Minnesota, never saw my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents out there. So since they were on the way to Wyoming, I stopped and got reacquainted with them. Got to see mountains without trees for the first time. When I came out of the 3-week journey, at the Knowles headquarters, there was a pack of letters, one from each day that Judy had written me. So I drove back home and I asked her to go backpacking with me. And so soon after that, I asked her to marry me. So in 1983, I became a member of Sandy Spring. I married a Lutheran. I was on a social order committee. Remember, this is God like throwing things at me. With a lady named Sally Eller, who's a Friend's House resident. Head of the environmental committee there, I believe. And she was working at a alternative high school for kids with substance abuse problems called Phoenix. And they needed, I thought they needed me. They needed a man to do observable urinalysis, collect samples, but I was supposed to go there. They had an extensive outdoor adventure program. I got paid to go hiking with kids. This was the first recovery school in the United States. There's currently a book at the printers about recovery schools, and half of that book is about Phoenix. You know, we were making it up as we go along. While I'm at this program, we're expecting these students to examine themselves each day. It made sense for the staff to do some self-examination at the same time. So I examined my love of marijuana. I discovered that, hey, I'm an alcoholic. I learned about 12-step programs and the idea of turning your will over to a higher power. And I worked at this program for 20 years. So I've got Judy, I've got Quakers, I've got the Lutheran Church and all that going on. And I became a father. I mentioned Course in Miracles, part of my continuing education. The Baltimore Yearly Meeting secretary at the time was a guy named Tom Jevons. He had a course where we read George Fox's journal together, something Judy and I could do together. We read John Woolman's journal together. Judy and I took courses from Pat Loring, who was putting together the information that she put together in her 2 volumes of Listening Spirituality. Pat Loring was my neighbor. I helped her move across the train tracks from where I lived. I found myself at the 75th anniversary of Pendle Hill, waiting in line for breakfast with Pat Loring on one side and Parker Palmer on the other side, just shooting the shit, you know, just kind of it's Quaker talk. Someone else moved down to a friend's house during that time, a man named Lee Stern and his wife Ruth. I was on the peace committee. Those of you who knew Lee know about his passion there. Lee and I met with Montgomery County Public Schools officials to try and get conflict resolution schools as part of the K-12 curriculum. I attended Common Boundary conferences. There was an organization based in Bethesda that explored the common boundary between spirituality and psychology. One of their conferences, I spent a day with a gentleman named Matthew Fox, another Catholic, who was kicked out of the church because he didn't believe in original sin. He wrote a book called Original Blessing. He wrote another book about the cosmic Christ in everything. He wrote about creation spirituality, my love of the outdoors, and God's presence in this tree outside that I see. I also started attending Baltimore Yearly Meetings Spiritual Formation Program. And there are 2 groups from different years that I still meet with over a decade later with that. We would meet as a large group from various meetings around BYM, many from Sandy Spring, and we would discuss a piece of literature that we read. Thomas Kelly, Isaac Pennington. I'm getting a great education. And luckily in a place where I can listen and read and try and make sense of it. The meeting, I'm glad to see we've resurrected friendly aids. I see a number of people that Judy and I were in and are in friendly aids groups with. Lifelong friends, capital small f. I would come to Quaker meeting because I like the idea that God didn't stop talking when the Bible, you know, the last period in the Bible was written, that God still talks to us today. So I would come to meeting and sit and wait for somebody to give a message. And I appreciated when there were no messages. The silence is very rich and deep. One day, you know, my heart starts pounding. I don't know what that's all about. And so it stills a little bit and then it doesn't go away. And I feel a message coming on. I say, not me. And so I keep stuffing it and it keeps coming back. I'm seeing at the back of this, I know you Zoomers can't see, but the back of this is, are you called to share a meeting in message? And there's a step-by-step guide, which I almost like followed till I rose in meeting and gave a message and sat down, and then the heartbeats, you know, stopped. For me, I am full of self-doubt. I love being lost. I go out in the woods, and if there's a time when I'm not sure where I am, and I have to use what's around me to make a decision on which way to go or not to go. I love those moments. Someone asked me to be on ministry and council, and my first reaction was, who, me? Because I knew the people that were on ministry and council. You know, those were the people that I were in these, you know, workshops with that spoke to me over time. So why not stretch myself? I was clerk of ministry and council, part of a group of clerks, when COVID hit. And what a stretch for all of us. And I was grateful to be in that position during a time when we had to figure out how to keep this meeting together and moving in God's light. No, I said I wasn't going to say beliefs, but I believe that the more time that I am aware that God is at the center of all, the better for me. It helps coming here to help me be more aware of that. I'm also believe that even if I'm unaware of that, that God is with me. As a matter of fact, she's here right now. I have to mention service as a big part of my life. All along my life, I've been doing service. I do things. This week, I went down to Ward 8 Woods with Sam and helped Nathan Harrington. I was out on the C&O Canal with the trash cleanup on Saturday. And Wednesday, washed dishes in the soup kitchen. I've been doing 35 years. I do trail work every summer. Service has brought me to Nepal, sure, and Machu Picchu. But I do it, I'm selfish. I do it because of what I get from it. I'm gonna close with another Catholic. I don't do much verbal prayer. I did a verbal prayer internally during 9 o'clock meeting when somebody's phone went off. I said, oh, thank God it wasn't me. You know, I don't do much praying with words. But this prayer of St. Francis as a great guide for me, and I use that a lot. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. where there's doubt, faith, where there's despair, hope, where there is darkness, light, where there is sadness, joy. Lord, let me not so much seek to be comforted as to comfort, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in understanding that we are understood, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Thank you for listening to me. If you have something to say, or if you're curious about anything that I said, or if you remember something that I left out, now's the time for that. Yes, sir. Approaching the owl so he could be heard.
That's right.
Modeling good owl behavior.
You mentioned that you were not a CEO, but you spoke to some Quakers about peace.
Yeah.
How did you find them? And can you say a little more about that discussion?
Well, it was a long time ago, up in Baltimore. I went to school in Towson, and I was about to lose my college draft deferment. And was very much against our intervention in Vietnam. And I don't really remember if they came to campus or if I went somewhere. But I had a number of conversations, and I couldn't lie about, like, I wasn't opposed to all war. Like, I really wished, evidently Iran is firing some missiles at Israel. I wish Israel would be able to say, there might be a reason why they're firing at us. Let's ask them, It's not that simple. I know I'm sitting here in Sandy Spring and I'm not under fire. But I was not against all wars at that time. I was not a pacifist. I don't label myself very much, but I would call myself a pacifist. I think the only other thing I identify myself as is a drummer. Yes, ma'am.
We think, talk a little bit about music in your spiritual. Or in your life.
Yeah,
Mike, why don't you repeat the question?
that's a great idea. Talk about music in my life. Judy jokes that's my God. Is rock and roll music. She might be accurate. Like I don't have to work to feel God's presence when I'm out in the woods. I'm there with creation. And same thing for the most time in Quaker meeting, right here. Thank you all. In 1963, I begged my parents, I watched Ringo on the Ed Sullivan show, and begged my parents for a drum set. And so, I don't have to act. I can just be when I'm playing my drums, whether it's playing by myself, or playing in a band. And I know a lot of you understand that. You could get, I could think a good word is lost. I've been playing music. It's not a good thing, but one time I came back to earth and I looked and my band members were like looking at me because the song was over. So, yeah. Music, an expression of the divine. And that's one of the things we require, to be a part of something greater than yourself. Mike's still here, yeah. Mike's and others from the Rockville chorus got to sing the Handel's music at the Kennedy Center, among other places. This guy back here, Mr. Roush, Yeah, it's, good stuff. Or, on, Maundy Thursday, is Jeff still here? Yeah, Jeff and Catherine. On Maundy Thursday, to close the church service in the darkness after Jesus has been arrested from the balcony. The church is in the darkness and we're singing, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? You know, you're so far from myself. It's that pleading, that wail, that being lost. You know, at that point, Jesus was arrested. His buddies didn't know what was going on. I'm not sure that Jesus knew what was going on. He just knew that he knew he had to do this. It's weird, you know, all my life I've been like part of more than one group at a time. So it is weird to miss being in Augustana Church when I'm in Sandy Spring and to miss Sandy Spring when I'm in Augustana. It works for me, I think.
I wanted to ask you how you finally handled Vietnam.
I went to Fort Holabird. I had a note from my allergist that said I had severe allergic rhinitis. I thought that was my ticket out, and pardon my language, which I use frequently, the guy I handed that note to said, I don't want to see this fucking paper, and threw that down. It's like, damn. I failed the hearing test.
Too much drama.
So I was declared unfit for military service. That's, you know, among the things that I have kept. I've kept my draft card, it says 4F. Which I was lucky, not, you know, my high school classes have it a reunion, and there are a number of people that went and did not come home. As, you know, are so many places around. Some of which are closed. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's Sam. Can you hear me on the mic? I'm pretty sure you can. Anyway, I wanted to say that, because of Mike, I sent a letter to the meeting house like 7 years ago, and Mike come to see me. If Mike hadn't answered that letter, I would be sitting here. I wouldn't be a part of Sandy Spring, and I don't know where my life would be right now.
Because of John Worley and Jack Fogarty and, you know, also people, and somehow that letter ended up in my hands. It was addressed to the clerk.
Right.
And the clerk handed it to me, and I had a decision to make. Who can I find to give it to, you know, or. It was one of those moments in the woods where it's like, okay, what do I do with this circumstance in my life? And, you know, is that divine intervention? Yes, I'll say yes, but not everybody would.
So Mike, when I see T-shirts, you know, sometimes it's like, I went to this national park, you know, or like I went to this beach or something. And then sometimes there's a message. So I'm looking at your shirt and I know you got it in the fall. So, you know, it's like, okay, I went to this place, but you've got Om on your shirt today in a talk about your spiritual journey. So I'm wondering, is there something you want to say about that?
I want to say two things. One, Om is the breath also. Om. But this is also, I was running out of clean clothes. I'm traveling for 3 weeks.
Just that.
And I had seen this T-shirt and I wanted it, but you know, I'm trying to get rid of some T-shirts, so. It's a little of both. But also, it was interesting because the power went out, so they couldn't run my credit card there at that moment.
So you stole the t-shirt?
No.
Do you want to talk about Kilimanjaro?
I'm actually probably the last one.
Yeah. I made up these things that I wanted to do for significant birthdays. Remember I saw in 1982, I saw the Grand Teton, the most beautiful mountain that I'd ever seen in my life. And I was, in 1982, I said, I want to stand on the top of that. And so for my 50th birthday, my whole family, including Judy, trained to climb to the top of the Teton. So I stood there, you know, on my 50th year. And I have bad knees. I have great knees now. There are knee replacements. Hold Lois Clark in the light. She has a new knee. Barb's about to get a new knee, the new knee club. But with bad knees, I went and hiked, I don't say climbed, it's a hike. You hike to the top of Kilimanjaro in Africa. It's my only time I've been in Africa. Still friends with my guide. We correspond from time to time. And went with my children. So that was gonna be when I turned 70, but I would have seized the moment when I was 65. And still felt like I could. Now I feel like, well, I don't know. I don't know what I can and can't do. But the only way to find your limits is to like go as far as you can, right?
Thank you, Mike, very much.
Thank you all. It was
Really,
an
thank you.
interesting putting this package together to like try and make sense of where I am, how I got here.
I'm glad you did it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
I especially like seeing you. What's your name?
Kevin's my name,
Kevin.
and I'll talk to you after.
Excellent. I'll be here after 12 o'clock meeting, also after 11 o'clock meeting, also, if we don't talk down here, Kevin.